Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer reached one of its most daring and artistically ambitious heights with the Season 4 episode Hush. Often acclaimed as one of the most terrifying and innovative episodes of the series, and arguably in all of television horror. Hush strips away what most shows rely on most heavily, dialogue. Yet, in doing so, it reveals far more about the characters, their relationships, and the way that they attempt and often fail to communicate. Before even diving into the themes, it's important to acknowledge that Hush introduces some of the most visually and conceptually terrifying villains in the entire Buffyverse, the Gentlemen. Floating, grinning, elegantly dressed figures that steal the voices of every person in Sunnydale, they glide around alongside their footmen, who I hate with a passion. They seek to harvest at least 7 human hearts, not boobs, as is later clarified in the episode. The fact that their victims can't scream makes them all the more disturbing. The Gentlemen are fairy tale monsters. They're remorseless, otherworldly, and exact in their violence. The silence that they impose creates a helplessness that I think is more unnerving than any loud, grotesque monster that the series has featured before. The main 2 gentlemen are played by Doug Jones and Camden Toy. Camden Toy also plays Gnarl in Season 7, Episode 3, and the Turrican in Season 7 as well as the Prince of Lies in Angel. Gnarl and the Gentlemen remain as pretty much the most disturbing and creepy monsters ever to appear in the series. Camden Toy's roles as both a gentleman and Gnarl highlight Buffy the Vampire Slayer's mastery of horror through contrasting sensory techniques. The Gentlemen disturb through purely visual means. Their silent, floating movements and eerie smiles are haunting in their stillness. The absence of dialogue just heightens their visual impact, making silence itself terrifying. Gnarl, by contrast, is introduced through sound. His voice, this chilling, childlike, sing-song, raspiness, is heard long before he appears on the screen, creating the dread in the audience through auditory cues alone.
Your friends left you here. No one comes to save you.
When his grotesque form is finally revealed, when he attacks Willow and Dawn later in the episode, the combination of sound and image just amplifies the horror.
Gnarl makes a pretty picture.
These characters show how Buffy crafts fear through sound, visuals, and the potent combination of both, demonstrating that terror doesn't always require gore. There's some gore in Season 7, Episode 3, and some implied gore in Hush, but other than that, just smart sensory storytelling is vital. The episode Hush begins conventionally, pretty much, with dialogue, score by Christoph Beck, and Whedon's characteristic quippiness. But at about the 14-minute mark, the show falls into an almost complete silence, other than sound design and score, that lasts for around another 26 minutes, so most of the episode. This isn't just a gimmick, it's a deliberate structural shift that reframes how the viewer experiences the story. The absence of dialogue draws attention to every single gesture, every facial expression, every score cue. It creates a space in which non-verbal communication, comedic timing, and facial acting become paramount. In a medium that is fundamentally driven by dialogue, Whedon forces the audience to listen to the silence, and in doing so, he makes silence itself terrifying. There are already so many moments of foreshadowing that are included before the voices are even taken.
Talk. All talk.
See above, re-talk. All talk. Plus, every time we talk, I have to lie.
Shut up.
We never talk.
Shut up.
Yeah. Tara, guys, quiet.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. That's enough small talk, don't you think?
From the very start of the episode, Hush is about communication. From the very first line spoken by Walsh.
Talking about communication. Talking about language. Not the same thing.
It's about communication, or precisely the lack of it. Even before the voices are stolen, every single major character is struggling to communicate honestly and effectively in some way. You've got Buffy and Riley, who are building romantic tension throughout the series and are both hiding at this point. They're both hiding major aspects about their lives to each other. You've got Buffy being the Slayer and Riley being part of the Initiative. This mutual withholding creates a barrier that they're unable to breach, making small talk and just awkward flirtation painfully circular. It's only when that they are robbed of their ability to talk that their emotions finally break through, culminating in a silent yet ultimately effective first kiss, finally. Ironically, they needed to stop speaking in order for them to connect. You've also got Xander and Anya. Their relationship is suffering from a classic case of unspoken assumptions and unmet expectations. Anya wants to define their relationship but doubts Xander's commitment. In a particularly uncomfortable moment, their fight spills into Giles's living room mid-argument. Giles, as well, is dealing with communication issues. He's struggling to assert boundaries in a space now partially invaded by Spike, who he, near the beginning of the episode, he sends to stay with Xander due to Olivia's arrival. There's even an off-screen miscommunication between Giles and Xander's mum, who sends Xander to Giles's house at the wrong time, just further contributing to the chaos. As well, you've got Willow, who's facing a crisis of communication, albeit of a different kind. She's disillusioned with her college Wicca group, who are more interested in bake sales than doing actual spells. She is frustrated, she feels isolated and misunderstood, but this frustration sets up one of the most significant introductions in the entire series. You've got Tara, and I am a Tara defender till I die. I love Tara. She's soft-spoken and anxious. Tara also struggles to connect with the group. Her stutter and discomfort highlight how difficult verbal communication can be even before the silence sets in. In the absence of dialogue, the show leans heavily on visual comedy and expressive acting. One of the episode's standout moments occurs when the Scoobies gather at a lecture hall for a briefing on the Gentleman. Giles, of course, relies on an overhead projector with a series of awful drawings, which is a running joke that continues into season 7. This scene, in particular, plays like a perfectly choreographed silent film, complete with exaggerated expressions, comedic timing, and dramatic music. Anya's eating popcorn, Giles is fumbling with the transparency, and you've got one of two gestures in this episode that the network were worried about them including. And you've got Buffy's outrage valid at the drawing of her, which has just become iconic. And all of this lands without the use of a single word. Visual comedy, when done well, is a powerful storytelling tool. It demands more from both the actors and the audience themselves, asking for attention to physical cues, timing, and subtext. It also lends itself to a kind of universal humour. It transcends language or even prior character knowledge. I think that anyone who hasn't watched Buffy could go into Hush, and with the context given in the first 14 minutes of dialogue, I think they could understand it perfectly and enjoy it. In Hush, the physical acting is what allows the emotional truths of the characters to surface. Their masks slip, their performances become more honest, and the silences reveal the most. As Sunnydale awakens to the loss of speech, the town begins to unravel. We see liquor stores flooded with customers, religious groups preaching in the streets, and an opportunist who is hawking whiteboards. This montage, though wordless, tells us everything we need to know about society and how society reacts to a crisis. You've got panic, desperation, and capitalism all surfacing at once. Buffy and Willow's purchase of the whiteboards becomes a symbolic reclaiming of agency. They may not be able to speak, but they can still communicate. Back at the Initiative, communication takes another form, text-to-speech software. Professor Walsh's cold, impersonal messages contrast starkly with the Scoobies' more human attempts to connect. This further reinforces the episode's critique of how institutions handle a crisis versus how individuals or civilians do. Once the gentlemen begin harvesting hearts, the horror element of the episode intensifies. A student is murdered in his dorm room, which why does Buffy always manage to sneak into these crime scenes without anyone seeing her? Meanwhile, Tara is facing her own horror sequence. She's frantically searching for Willow while the gentlemen float towards her. These scenes rely entirely on visual tension, echoing the aesthetics of classic silent horror films like the 1922 Nosferatu. Eventually, Tara and Willow connect in more ways than one. Together, they move a vending machine using their combined magic, a symbolic and literal moment of power, and the beginning of one of the show's most beloved relationships. That single moment of hand-holding between them becomes more powerful, I think, than any dialogue could have possibly been. It's intimate, emotional, and completely wordless. This here is the gay agenda, people. Fox News, listen up. We're moving vending machines and that's all we want. The final showdown in the clock tower has Riley and Buffy confronting the gentlemen and their footmen directly. Their secrets are exposed by proximity, even if not yet fully understood. You've got Buffy with her crossbow and Riley with his stake gun thingy, and they're face to face, but they've got no clue what's going on with the other person. On his second attempt, Riley smashes the box containing all the voices, which causes Buffy to unleash a scream that destroys the gentleman in an explosion of sound. The voice, the very thing stolen from them, becomes the weapon of their salvation. And yet, the most haunting moment of the episode isn't the scream, or the death, or the monsters. It's the silence that follows the return of the voices. In the final scene, Buffy and Riley sit across from each other in Buffy's dorm room. They can now speak, they have the ability to speak, but they still say nothing. It's devastatingly quiet. And after all the chaos and the screaming and the running, the silence between them is heavier than ever. This proves that communication isn't just about speaking, it's about honesty, vulnerability, and, as cheesy as it sounds, the courage to share your true self. Hush isn't just a clever experiment. It's a thesis statement on what television can be. By removing dialogue, it forces the medium to rely on its visual grammar, framing, editing, score, performance, blocking, mise-en-scène. And more importantly, it holds a mirror up to how we actually communicate as humans. Through glances, through touch, through acts of protection, courage, kindness, and very, very gay eye contact. This episode reminds us that silence can speak volumes, and sometimes it's in the quiet that we're most honest. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, it would really help me out. I want to know what your favourite thing about this episode is, so feel free to leave that in the comments. I have so many ideas for videos that I would love to make, so if you want more of this, watch this space and I'll get it done. You can follow me on Instagram at ScuffyTVS, I'll link that in the description. I'll be sharing my Buffy collection bit by bit, some of which you can see behind me. If you have any topics for videos that you want to see from me, also leave those in the comments or DM me on Instagram. Until next time, I've been ScuffyTVS, and thank you for watching.